Welcome, everybody, to the Coach Bru podcast. This is a very rare and special occasion. Usually, there are no guests on the podcast. In these rare events where we do bring a guest on the show, they always end up being these super talented, very, very interesting people. Today is no exception. And if you've listened to the last episode or two of the pod, you know that I recently published a children's book, Roody Kangaroo Moves Forward. It's my first children's book, and today I'm very excited to introduce to you the illustrator. Her name's Piper Colston. She is coming to you live. Well, not really live, but we recorded this. She is in... I'm going to mispronounce the name of your town, Piper, because I pronounce things like the way they're spelled, but I've been informed by many people in your community that it is not pronounced the way it's spelled. It is, I pronounce it Rivera, Texas.
It's actually the correct way to pronounce it, but people just end up saying Rivera.
Rivera. Yeah, why is that second I silent?
I don't know. I think it's just because it's originally named after like the French Riviera, and then with so many Spanish-speaking people, it just kind of became Rivera, and then it just kind of took on its own thing.
How is Geraldo Rivera's last name pronounced? Is it pronounced is it spelled, Riviera or Rivera?
I don't know.
I don't know, but that's a good point. I was told because it's nothing like the French Riviera that people just decided to pronounce it Rivera. I don't know if there's any truth to that urban myth. Somebody we both know that you're close to told me that. I'm not sure if I buy it.
Yeah, I don't know that much about it.
Yeah, so Piper Colston is joining us. She is a very talented, exceptionally talented artist, designer. How would you technically describe yourself? Artist?
I'm just a kid that likes to draw.
Keyword, a kid that likes to draw. At the time of illustrating this amazing piece of artwork, Piper was in 8th grade. Which is wild if you think about it, because personally, and maybe I'm a little biased, folks, but I think that my new book is better illustrated than if a, quote, air quotes, professional / adult illustrated it. And we're going to kind of get into that and unpack why I believe that, besides the fact that I just simply think Piper is awesome. So we'll dive into that. But first, welcome, Piper. Great having you here.
Hi.
And I would love to just kind of let everybody know, sort of orientate the audience, kind of the ABCs of Piper Colston. Like, how'd you first get started in art? Let's go back to the beginning.
I think it was just one of those things to where it's just, coloring on a piece of construction paper in pre-K, and it's like, hey, I like this. And it just kind of stuck, I guess, just kind of resonated.
So it stuck, it resonated. You obviously honed your craft for a long time doing that. And at some point, I'm sure you went from coloring to colored pencils to painting to charcoal, experimented with different things. What I'm wondering is, when did you know or have an inkling of an idea that you had a talent for this, like that this is one of your gifts?
I think it was just drew a lot, and I think someone else has said this, but the only talent that someone really has to possess in order to be an artist is the desire to create. And, because you can have talent in so many different things, but a specific thing, you can be not good at it at all. So, but sure. With, it's just kind of I guess everyone's talented in their own way, but just with, different things. I guess whenever I found out was just other people saying, "Hey, you're pretty good at drawing," thanks.
So that was going to be my next question for you was was this something that you saw in your own work or is it something someone else pointed out to you first?
I think others had just pointed out. It's like, "Hey, that's pretty good." And it's like, "Oh, okay. Thanks, I guess." And it just kind of took from there.
Sure. Yeah, I think so often we're our own harshest critic, or we're humble and we kind of downplay our talents and abilities sometimes. So let me ask you this, because you seem to have a pretty clear focus on where you're going and what you want to do. Some people know at a very early age precisely what they want to do professionally as adults. And then other people, it almost takes them a lifetime to figure it out. Do you think I know you want to pursue a degree in art in college, but do you think you already know the career direction you want to take with that?
Um, I guess I just want to be an illustrator mostly. I guess the good thing about art is that it's not like a medical degree where you have to be a dentist or
Yeah.
doctor or however that works. You can be an art professor, you can sell your own things, you can be an animator. Like it can just kind of it's such a broad range, and you
Sure.
can just kind of choose.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You can be a specialist at one moment and then turn on a dime and become a generalist, or just simply move in a different direction with your art. And that's, I think, the beauty of art, or just the beauty of being a creator in general. Um, so, in terms of practicing your craft, you talk about elite athletes will train every day. Like Michael Phelps is in the pool, an ungodly amount of hours every single day. Training for the Olympics, or just simply, because he loves to swim. But how do you practice? And is it something you do daily? What's your process look like there?
I just kind of draw whenever I feel like, and there are times where it's like every single day, and then other times where it's just like I do not feel like drawing. Like drawing is the last thing I want to do.
You just described me with writing. That's exactly the way I'm wired. That's funny.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So when you're not drawing, and you kind of go through, let's just say, like a dry spell creatively or whatever, what do you enjoy doing when you're not drawing or illustrating that kind of feeds your art and feeds your creativity? So you kind of get
Most
that
of the time
spark back. Yeah.
yeah, or like most of the time I'm just kind of like watching TV, doing your average leisurely thing. But if it's to kind of like feed the creative flow, I guess. I've recently picked up guitar because, it's still a creative thing you can do, but it's not necessarily, just drawing or just, it can, musically, it can be creative too, I guess.
They say that as a youth, playing a musical instrument is instrumental, no pun intended, in your brain growth and just kind of expanding, the neural pathways in your brain, your ability to learn in different ways. So I think that's awesome. And again, it's a different kind of art, it's a different kind of creativity, and if that helps, feed or be a source of creative inspiration for your art, that's phenomenal. Let me ask you this: what, shifting gears here to talking about our friend Roody Kangaroo, and the book project. I'm going to ask you what you loved about the project, and then also what was the most challenging part of it.
I really like being able to. I loved the process of making a drawing, turning a drawing into a scene. if you know what I mean, because, you can have these characters talking, adding just the amount of lighting or adding the right background, the right colors. It just, you're not looking at a drawing, you're looking at characters talking. And that was really fun, being able to see that happen. But I think my least favorite part about the illustrating the book have to be I don't know, I guess it's just whenever it's such a big project and it takes so long, and you have those days with something where it's just like, I just want to get this done.
Yep.
And
what was the most challenging scene for you to illustrate with that in mind?
Maybe
so before you answer, let's backtrack for a minute. I want to tell the audience two things. Number one, I had an idea or a vision for how I wanted the cover to look, and then I asked you to kind of spec that out and sort of do, almost like an audition illustration to see how I liked it, see how we worked together. And then I had descriptions of what I felt the scenes ought to look like to match the text on each page of the book. And you went ahead and not only just did the cover, but I think you also did two scenes in advance of us even agreeing to anything. So I was just like, wow, first of all, she's super motivated. Second of all, I was blown away with your talent. But then the best part of that whole situation was you telling me, hey, I know this is what you said you wanted the cover to look like, but I don't really think your vision for the cover jives with, I'm paraphrasing, jives with the message of the book with Rudy. How about I try a variation of it or a different version of it? And I'm thinking, okay, so number three, she's not afraid to speak her mind, and she's obviously super confident. So I was like, yeah, remember I just said, yeah, go for it. Let's see it. And you ended up delivering something that just was way, way exponentially better than what I had planned in my head and I had envisioned. So then I just said, you know what? All those descriptions of what each of the pages should look like, scrap it, do whatever you want. Because you just made it look better. And I know I've told you this before, but this is for everyone listening. Like, you just made the whole project look better and shine brighter than I ever would have imagined. And so I sort of tricked you with this, Piper. So with all that being said, what was the most challenging illustration? You kind of did that to yourself, because we threw out the playbook and I said, you do you make it however you want. Which scene do you think was the most challenging?
I think it was the one where Rudy is like peering behind the bush, and India, the elephant, is eating the popcorn, because like, her head was such a big shape in order to get it right with eating and without making it look weird. It was like, that one took, like, just the characters took 3 days. Yeah, the one before, whenever he's looking at the elephant.
Okay. That one, yep.
Yeah. And that one, like, on the book, it actually turned out better than I expected. Yep. There are still so many things, like, I wish I could just go back and change.
Yeah.
But that's how it is. I just see all the mistakes, and it's like, ah! But.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast with a songwriter, and he was saying, like, after he cuts a song, every time he goes back and listens to it, he wishes he could change a line or part of the lyrics of the song, but you can't do that. And he's talking to a stand-up comic. He said, at least you guys have the luxury of every time you perform, you can tweak the lines and the words a little bit, and you can make it better, but no one will know that you really changed anything. My music goes on the radio and people get accustomed to hearing it a certain way. I can't change. But yeah, that's everything I produce too, is I'll write something, I'll go to, I'll hit publish, and I think, oh, I wish I would have done that a little differently. But yeah, that was I love the way you kind of navigated that challenge with that scene, and it's just so impressive. The more people who see the book and the more feedback I get on it, the elephant is a fan favorite, by the way,
Oh,
in terms of the characters and the way they look. And India Elephant is the character's name, folks, and she's just big and adorable in ways that you can't imagine if you haven't seen the book. So I'd encourage you to get a copy of the book. I am relieved that you said that was the most challenging part of the process. I thought you were going to say I was a pain in the butt to work with, Piper.
oh.
How was I to work with? Let's be honest. How was I to work with? Because my intern right here, my intern Jackie is sitting across the table from me, and I guarantee you she would tell you I'm a pain in the butt to work with.
It wasn't. I mean, we didn't really. We communicated, but it wasn't like, I wasn't sending you every single page after I was done. It was just, checking up on the book, seeing how it was going good, and then we would kind of go our separate ways. So, I mean, it was fine. I'm really glad that you were so willing to be like, okay, yeah, sure, we can do that. We can, so.
I think one of the hardest things for any creator to do, or really anyone in any leadership role, is to kind of let go and just let people play to their strengths. And it's something I've struggled with for a long time, and I hope I'm starting to get better at. And just seeing how you had the courage and the willpower to tell me, I think we ought to do the cover differently. And I just turned you loose and let you go with it, and was so impressed with how it turned out. You've actually taught me a lot. Like, I have grown and learned in ways through this project that I never would have imagined. And one of those ways is just letting people exercise their own judgment and kind of letting go of the process and letting people play to their strengths. One of the coolest lessons that I've learned, and I think that when people pick up a copy of this book, they buy it and read it, they will see this same thing play out in how they consume the product and how they watch the story and the illustrations kind of line up and mesh together as they're watching their child's reaction or their student's reaction to reading it. And this is just kind of the biggest lesson for me, is with any project, with any message, is who you hire to do the work. And what I mean by that is, I'm not talking about credentials. Like, you didn't send me a resume. I never saw a portfolio. I gave you an idea, and you illustrated the idea for the cover, because that's what I asked for, but you said I can do better than that, and you gave me something else. What I mean is, like, who you hire is important, and who you select for, whether it's an employer, delegating something to an employee, whatever it is. One of the reasons I think this project came out so well is the lens and the eyes through which you were able to view the whole story as an 8th grader, as a kid. I hate to call you a kid because you're so mature and you're so responsible and professional, but you called yourself a kid earlier in the podcast, so I'm just quoting you at this point. But as a kid who's not very far removed from actually being the audience for the book, from being a reader of the books, you can see it through a very unique lens that an adult would never see it through. And there's a huge lesson in that for anyone listening. A lot of people who listen to the show are business leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners. Like, the best people for your projects are people who probably aren't that far removed from being your customer, being your audience, or, mirror them as closely as possible. And that's why I think this project came out so well and is so powerful and is really going to help so many people is the unique lens through which you're able to view it and put your touch on it and your personal thumbprint, if you will. With that in mind, sometimes I know artists like to put like a special little touch or their own unique sort of flair or special something in the images. Some people call them Easter eggs, like you hide a little something somewhere in a project. Is there anything special that you hid in some of these illustrations, or something special that you would want people to look for when they're really looking at the illustrations and admiring them?
I actually do. There's actually 3 of them. The first time it appeared was like, it's going to be a pretty long explanation, so just kind of bear with me.
Sure.
But back in like the 1930s, there were these like an Indian antelope that were imported to be almost kind of like replacements for cattle in South Texas. They were kind of turned loose in the King Ranch, but they just kind of became feral. They're called nilgai, which is Indian for blue bull. And they're just kind of like the thing in South Texas now. So like, you can look out the yard and like, oh, look, there's and they're like my favorite animals ever. So I decided to hide one of them, 2 of them actually, in the book. The first time they appear is
don't tell people the pages.
Oh, okay. I won't.
So let's let them find it.
Okay.
I just wanted to know what, if anything, there was a little something special hidden in there.
Okay,
so you hid 2 of them in there? Was there a third thing or no?
There was a third thing, but it was in one of the other. It was in the same page that I'm going to mention, but there was like this kind of black and white animal with sunglasses on. Like, it was supposed to kind of bring up the question, like, what kind of animal is that? Is it a fox? Is it a bear? Is it a dog? What kind of animal is that? And so I just decided to kind of like add that in there just for like, just kind of make them ask that question.
That's the one thing I noticed, which prompted the question. I had no idea, folks, and Piper, about the nilgai. But that other animal, that other character with the sunglasses, the one thing that I noticed that sort of prompted that. That is funny. I'm so glad I asked that. But do you know who did notice that? And I don't know if it's because you told her or she saw it herself. Do you know who noticed that?
I think I know who you're talking about, but I don't think she didn't say anything to me.
Okay, so and this person is the person who I probably should have mentioned at the very beginning of this podcast, but this is kind of us going off on a really interesting tangent. How I connected with Piper, people have asked, like, did she win a contest? Was this some sort of crowdsourced thing? No, you were introduced to me by a mutual friend, a mutual acquaintance, one of the teachers at your school, who's a friend of mine, Roody Kangaroo. And she is the reason I even wrote a children's book. She suggested, she's like, have you ever written a children's book? Have you ever thought about writing a children's book? And I said, no, that never in a million years has that thought crossed my mind, Rhonda. And she's like, well, I think the message of chin up, chest out, and the whole concept of moving forward would really resonate with kids. They see me wearing my chin up, chest out shirt or a hat at school, and they ask about it. And it's just kind of, the phrase has been top of mind with them. I hear them repeating it back to me. Like, I really think this would be a great message for a children's book. And one of the things I've learned as I've gotten older is, like, number one, you have discernment and listen carefully. Be careful who you listen to. But when there's someone you respect who is very intelligent and insightful, take their feedback seriously, take it to heart, and really listen. And she's one of those people I have, just an incredible amount of respect for. And I took that to heart, and I listened to her, and I started kind of experimenting with, well, what would the message be? What would I write about? How would that look? And that's sort of how we came up with the concept of Roody Kangaroo. It's spelled Roody, for those of you who don't know, like a kangaroo, Rudy. And the kangaroo is the only mammal on the planet that cannot move backwards. So the whole idea of move forward, kangaroo can only move forward. So that's sort of where that was born. I want to give Rhonda all the credit in the world for the genesis of this book, the whole idea, and for making the introduction to us. But she is absolutely the person who told me that you hit a couple little special things in some of the illustrations, and she was blown away with your work to begin with. But then she, like after I sent her the draft, your first round of illustrations, she calls me up. She's like, "This is incredible." And she's like, "Did you see what she put in? Beyond the illustrations being amazing, John, did you see what she put in one of them?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "She has nilgai hidden in there." I'm like, "I don't even know what that is." And so I am so thankful that she made that introduction, that she felt comfortable enough making a suggestion for kind of the direction I ought to take some of my work. And I'm eternally grateful that I listened. I really feel like there's a higher power at work, kind of connecting all the pieces of this puzzle. First of all, how Rhonda and I connected, and then how she immediately thought of you for this project. And I'm just so grateful. And I think when people see this, different things are going to resonate with different people. But what's one thing besides hidden elements? What's the one thing you want people to notice, or how do you want them to react to what you've created? And after you answer that, I'll tell you the one thing I was blown away by the whole project, but the one thing that really blew me away. So what do you want people to notice, and how do you want them to react to this?
I don't know. I feel like, in all honesty, I feel like I would need to have some sort of explanation, like along with the book, because I had learned quite a few things that are very essential to living. Like things like illustrating this book, like balance, just like learning what my limits are, and
you're juggling all this while you're in the middle of your academic year, which makes it even more impressive.
To struggle with,
you're in the middle of 2 sports seasons, if I'm not mistaken, a full course load at school, and doing this.
Yeah, it was quite a lot. Yeah. So it was a bit stressful at times, but it all worked out, and I wouldn't trade any of it for anything else.
Excellent. Likewise. My reaction to the illustrations, like the thing that was just so over the top amazing for me, was how you were able to not just illustrate the characters, but to manipulate and adjust and change in some very detailed, nuanced ways the expressions on each of their faces, to create and to illustrate the emotions they were feeling from scene to scene. Like how the cheetah was scared, how Rudy looked determined when he was carrying the cheetah up the hill. And I don't want to give too much of the story away. How scholarly the owl always looked, and how very buttoned up and professional she was. But you could tell in different scenes, like whether it's just sort of her positioning and her posture, you really were able to, in a very subtle way, make it extremely clear in the eyes of the reader the emotions. Like, they didn't have to read the scene. The emotions were literally painted you painted a picture with the facial expressions. So like all you needed to see was the facial expression, and the reader could tell the story of what was happening without any words, which I think is just incredibly masterful and sophisticated in terms of your technique and strategy with that. So that just above and beyond everything else just took it to a whole nother level for me.
Well, I'm really glad. That was actually one of the funnest things to work on the book, was the experience, because
Cool.
you see a really happy character and then they're just so surprised. It was just really fun to do that.
So I told a number of people that I'd be interviewing you, people who listen to the podcast, and I asked for a couple questions, just a couple listener questions, and I'm going to fire them at you if you're up for it.
Totally.
So listener question number 1, what was your process for creating the visuals for the book? Like I imagine there are different phases to it, or storyboarding. I'm not sure what you did, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the very first thing I had done was, obviously read the manuscript. That's, you kind of have to do that in order, but I had made these little like mock-up thumbnails, like these just black and white sketches of what each page could look like. And, over time they had changed with the process of the book. But after the thumbnails, I had kind of gone on to the backgrounds, and, that was actually, some of them were really fun to make with some of the lighting and shadows and stuff, just making it really pop. And then adding the
even
characters.
how you did like the texture to the ceiling of the classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Like the easy route for anybody would be, well, just paint the ceiling of the room white, which is typically what you'd see in a house or wherever. But no, there's just so much detail even to the ceiling of a room, which is super cool. So what's the next phase for you with that?
After the background, I had kind of gone on to the characters, and that was one of the biggest parts, because there was line art to do, and then coloring, and then shading, and then lighting. So it was a pretty big process, but it all worked out, and I'm really glad it did.
Well, the neat part for me was I didn't get to see that full sort of transition across that spectrum. I saw basically like almost like black and white charcoal drawings of the scenes, and then the next thing, I didn't see anything until I saw what was essentially very, very close to the final draft in full color, and it was just it just jumped off the page so differently, which was very cool. So second question, Piper, was what brought you the most joy throughout the whole process?
I guess just being able to draw, because that's really where it's at for me. It took a while for it to hit me that like I illustrated something for someone. I illustrated a book. Like that's a professional thing. I can't remember the word, but like professionals do that, and it just hadn't hit me because I just drew some pictures and gave them to this guy and text on them.
Yeah. So you're a professional. It's official,
Yeah.
And the way you handled everything, every step of the way, was incredibly professional. Right down to the different language you use, using words like rendering. I'll render the final version of the cover design for you this evening, Mr. Brubaker, and things like that, which is just I just got such a kick out of. I'm like, I have to Google some of these words she's using, and she's in 8th grade. So I am glad that you got a lot of joy out of just the process and doing it as a professional. My question for you now, this is me asking, I think in every walk of life, in every profession, and I get this from sports, like there's that whole concept of like being in the zone. which is just another word for being super focused and really kind of feel like you're performing your best and you're just kind of hitting your stride. At what point in this whole process with the book did you really feel like, you know what, I'm really just locked in, I'm in the zone, with this aspect of it?
I feel like that feeling hit near the end whenever it was getting close to the due date, and that was whenever it was like May 14th, when it was like, okay, we have until now to finish, and I still had a lot of pages to do because there was so much sports stuff. Like I had track meets every week, and there was just like end of the year exams, and just like being a teenager, just having things that you have to do. So I really buckled down in that last month and got everything done. And that was really whenever it was like every day after school, like going and working on the book. It was, that's whenever I was really in the zone, and just so glad that I was able to get it done,
That makes two of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just so impressed with just your ability to handle everything you had going on. And speaking of like handling things with grace and professionalism, you're headed off to high school in the fall, and then you would like to go to college and major in art. What kind of what's next for you? Like, have you thought about other projects that you might want to do, or are you just focused on like enjoying your summer and then getting ready for being a high school student, or what's next for you?
I mean, I have a few concepts for for a project I'm working on right now. I don't know if I'm actually able to say it because it's for like this local like livestock show thing, but I mean, there's a homemaking section, so I don't know if I'm allowed to like say anything. So it's kind of
you don't have to. That's fine.
Okay,
that's cool.
But
so you're doing like basically a design project for a local association, essentially. We can leave it at that. That's great. So let's fast forward, kind of look off in the distance through the telescope. Where do you see yourself, when you get out of school? And I don't just mean high school. You're gonna, go off to college, and then kind of what's your big picture vision for after that? What would you like to be doing?
Honestly, I would like to be an art professor and teach at a university, like a college of some kind. But I don't know. I guess because it's so far ahead that it's kind of hazy. Can't really see what's just yet. There's so much stuff with school and college that I've planned that I'm just gonna wait until something comes up and it's like, okay, yeah, that kind of sets some more things down.
Sure. I think that's smart, listening to kind of the clues the universe gives you. But I will say, to put a plug in for being a professor, it's a great life. I think working with kids, whatever age, as an educator, keeps you young at heart. And then also, selfishly, the best way to continue to get better at something is by teaching it to other people. Like, it just kind of helps you, sharpen your axe, so to speak, as you're chopping wood. It just kind of helps you keep sharp and keep up to date on how your industry or your profession evolves. And university setting or working in a school district allows you a lot of freedom, academic freedom, which is really cool. But yeah, I think with your talent, you get the world at your fingertips, and you can blaze whatever trail you want, Piper. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you if, number one, they want to hire you? And she's very selective about the clientele that she takes on and the customers that she curates, folks. She doesn't work with just anybody. I mean, obviously, look at me, right? She only takes on elite clients, right, Piper?
Yes.
Yeah. So if people wanted to hire you, how would they get in touch with you? And then also, if you want people to, kind of be able to follow you and see some different samples of your artwork and that kind of thing, is there a social media account they should follow and things like that?
Um, I had recently deleted all my social media stuff just because it just one of those things like it just wasn't serving me.
Good
It
for you.
just
That's healthy. That's very healthy.
thank you. It was just every time I after I spent time on it, I just didn't feel great. Just that
Yep.
kind of ugh, kind of I don't know. But I mean, I guess I would just make a website that would hold a gallery or something, and somebody could reach out to me and be like, "Hey, can you make this?" Yeah, sure.
Okay. And until that website comes to life, folks, if you want to funnel any inquiries through me, I will pass them along to Piper. I'll serve as her temporary agent for the time being with that. But yeah, I think that's really healthy. And you're the first person your age I've heard who just said, I'm off social media. I've deleted my accounts. And yeah, maybe a website someday. That's awesome. So, Piper, do you have any questions for me? Is there something I forgot to ask you about all this that I should have asked you?
I do have a question for you. Like, what was your first like? How did you feel hiring a 14-year-old at first? How
This,
was that for you?
this is a great question. One of the things that uh, I try and always do, like I usually have interns, whether they're in high school or college, I'll have an intern working with me, at various points for various lengths, during the year. So you were just kind of like a slightly younger intern in a way, if that makes sense. So, and I'm used to coaching and teaching, working with kids. So that was easy. And I didn't have any like reluctance or fear with that. The one thing that I found interesting, and I really try and practice what I preach, with the students I teach or when I was coaching, is I fancy myself to be like Uber, and Uber will meet you wherever you are. You just go on the app and say, "I'm right here." Drop a pin. I'm right here. Come pick me up. And I fancy myself as being like Uber, and that I'll meet you where you are. If you're someone who wants to meet in person to work together, I'll meet in person. If you want to do a Zoom call, I'll do that. If you like to text, I can text. If you want things done by email so you can document everything, I'm good with that. And I found it so interesting and so different that 99.999% of what we did was simply via text message. And it was just so different for me. And yeah, it's generational. I'm sure like so much of what you do is probably text, and some, personality wise, maybe that's what you prefer. But to do a project of this magnitude and to have, like the sample images and the cover and things like answering questions and going back and forth and feedback be almost exclusively done by text. And then at the very end, you delivered the final files by email. And then after it was all said and done, we jumped on a Zoom call. That was just, I'm not saying it was out of my comfort zone. It was just so different, especially for a project of this magnitude, that that was good for me. It was good for me to stretch me that way. But you're not the typical 14-year-old. You're like way more professional and responsible and creative and open and honest in your feedback and communication than many adults that I've dealt with. So the short answer, following my very long, drawn out answer, is it was refreshing. How's that?
Wait, sorry. I think you might have like cut out or something. Did you
No,
say it was refreshing or was it refreshing?
it was refreshing.
Okay.
My short answer after my very long answer is it simply was refreshing to
Oh
work
yeah.
with you and the way we worked through everything. And part of me wonders if the reason that this project came out so well is because of how we communicated. Like if the means of communication somehow facilitated all of this coming out better. I have no way of knowing that, but I just wonder, you know. And it was just a lot of fun. And, you know, I guess my whole thing going into this is I had no reservations about, quote, hiring a 14-year-old or working with an 8th grader, because this is exactly the kind of opportunity I would have loved that I never got when I was your age, or even when I was in high school and for part of college at least, you know. So I do think that, you know, when you have the opportunity to work with a young person, you're going to get fresh ideas. You're going to get a very different perspectives, things seen through a different lens. It'll probably turn out better, but at the same time too, like, you know, everyone needs an opportunity. Everyone should be seen and noticed and have a chance to showcase their talents. And if I can help do that for somebody, there have been people, you know, in my professional career, whether it's early on or even recently, who have given me opportunities. I feel like I have an obligation to do that same thing and pay it forward. And so that was one of the most rewarding aspects of all of this.
Well, good. You know.
So what's been the reaction by family, friends, relatives, your teachers, maybe people you've shown the book to or who have seen it?
Most of the time, like, I kept most of it pretty private whenever it was like at school or something, just because.
I mean now that it's done.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess most of it is like, you know, good job, Piper, you're so talented. You know, thank you. But that was essentially, like, they're really proud of me, and I'm really glad. I mean, I'm proud of me too, because
sure, you should be.
This is like one of the biggest achievements that I think I've ever done. So it was, you know, it was good to have people supportive, I guess.
Excellent.
Yeah.
No surprises, no curveballs with any of that?
Yeah, it was, I mean, my family was surprised, but I mean, they say that they weren't surprised because, you know, just quoting them, like, I'm so talented and I have a lot of potential, and, you know.
It's just Piper being Piper.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, I am so glad that you made time for us to connect on here and kind of share the story behind the story with the project and your process and everything. Anything else? What did I forget? Anything else, Piper?
I don't think so.
Where can people order the book? That's what I forgot to tell people, right?
Oh.
Yeah, the website is Cuco Roody. That's C-U-C-O Roody, ROODY.com. You can go there, order the book, and we can get that right out to you. Shipping is free. It's only $15 a copy. If you're an educator, there's some other educational supplemental resources available on the website. And I'd encourage you to head over to CucoRoody.com. Check that out. Final question for you, Piper.
Okay.
Did it feel weird, or how did it feel to be signing copies of the book for people? Put your autograph on it.
It was, I guess, just once again, it hadn't sunken in yet. It was like, oh, right, I'm signing this book that I illustrated. It was just like, okay, I'm writing my name on this printed piece of paper, then giving it to someone, you know. So I think maybe when I'm older, maybe in like 30 years it'll hit. I don't know. But
I think this will just be the first of many, many, many times that you do that. So
yeah,
I'm excited for you. I can't wait to see what you do next and just following your successes. So again, thank you. I learned a lot from you, and you pushed me and challenged me in ways that you know, I was very surprised by in a very good way. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Rhonda while I have the opportunity to do that here. on the podcast, because without Rondi Auckland, none of this happens. And I do believe, not to get too spiritual on the pod here, but I do believe there's a higher power at work that made all this possible, all these connections, and I'm just so grateful for that. And my whole belief about every project that I release, book, program, whatever it is if it helps one person, who's having a dark day or needs a little inspiration and needs a little help, then it was worthwhile. It's not about being a bestseller or awards or anything like that or money. It's just about, if we can help one person, just one person through all this, it's been worthwhile. And I just have a feeling with the way you went about everything, Piper, this book's going to help a lot of people. So again, thank you. It's really been an honor and a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm really honored that I was to work with you. It was a learning experience for the both of us.
Yep.
Just being able to, do this whole thing.
It's been great, and I think this is just kind of the beginning as far as the reach with this book. And hopefully I get to make it down to South Texas and sign some books and meet some folks in your community. I've already purchased copies, and I just I'm very grateful for the response that people in your community have given me and been very welcoming. And I've always said I identify as Texan. I've never meant it more than right about now. Like Rivera, Texas is a second home to me, even though I've never been there. It's just I think they're incredible people there, and your family being at the top of that list, and as well as Rhonda. So, folks, if you have any questions after you finish listening to this, rating it and reviewing the podcast, feel free to leave a comment, email. You can email the podcast. You can leave a voicemail comment on the podcast homepage, anchor.fm, or wherever you're consuming this. And of course, obviously, go to kukorudy.com, pick up a copy or 1,000 copies of the book, and you won't regret it, I promise. Piper, we'll have to do this again soon. We'll have to revisit this after the book has taken off and made its way around the world here. And thanks again.
Of course.
Awesome.
Bye.
Take care.